Marketing for the now, marketing for the now, marketing for the now, marketing for the now. 10 minutes, 12 remarkable guests for 2 hours answering a singular important question.
Are you ready, Gary?
What do you think?
Hi, everyone, and welcome to VaynerX Presents Marketing for the Now. How are you doing, Gary?
I'm doing extremely well. How are you?
I'm good. It's our 17th episode, and I have to say, after a day like yesterday, I'm feeling pretty fine.
That makes me happy. Yes, it is beautiful and sunshine, and I am extremely excited about our first show of the year.
We've got an awesome lineup. It's our first episode of 2021, and we are going to focus on one question, as you know. What does the modern media plan look like in 2021? So we're going to kick things off with Andrea Brimmer. Andrea is the Chief Marketing and Public Relations Officer at Ally Financial, where she leads a team of 150 disruptive marketers. Since then, Ally's brand has doubled in value every year since she launched the new promise in 2016. And so over those 3 years, they've been celebrating Ally's promise, do it right. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea. Appreciate being here. Hey, Gary.
How are you? So many Andreas.
I know, right? I've never been around so many Andreas at once.
So, Andrea, first of all, how's your new year going? How you feeling? What's cooking?
I am feeling good, Gary. I feel, yesterday was just a good day for our country. I feel like a good amount of peace and,
You're ready to rock and roll.
The new year and ready to rock and roll.
So let's get right into it because, we have a lot of entrepreneurs. We have a lot of Fortune 500 companies. So we're going to try to break this down a little bit. But I think what's real, and I love the dog in the background. So don't worry about that. It's perfect. It's exactly how I want it.
Sorry.
What does the modern media plan look like? And actually, I'm going to take 1 second to help the viewers. The comms planning, like where are you going to put your money to make the thing that you want to happen? For entrepreneurs, you're kind of doing that on a wheel. For big co's, Andrea will go into that in a second. There's a lot, you hire a media agency, they plan, but I think the landscape, Andrea, I think we can agree is changing so quickly. And kind of when you watch Mad Men years ago, the TV department just gets stood up, right? It's TV, print, outdoor, radio, go to sleep.
Right.
Then there's this thing called internet. But then my life's work realizes that's like saying oxygen. There's a million things in there. When you hear the question that we're doing today, what does the modern media plan look like? What does that come across to you as? And one last time before you answer, I see you all in the comments, Michael Lynn, Charlotte Nicole, Jeff Hotch. I see you on all the different platforms. Please hit Twitter hard with your questions and observations using hashtag marketing for the now, and we will try to incorporate you into the show. Andrea, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Gary. The way that we think about it is, I could really boil it into kind of 3 words that are guiding the way that I think about it and the way our team's thinking about it at Ally: dynamic, disruptive, and culturally astute. And when I think about dynamic, it's the point that it is ever changing. Like, you take last year as an example, nobody would have ever expected the unavailability of original production, the migration of audiences to new platforms, the importance of things like gamification versus, linear TV. And a marketer that's not prepared for that, that constantly shifting atmosphere and just sets it and forgets it, is really missing where audiences are going. So that idea of dynamic is really critically important.
Do you feel like you have that in place? Like when you think, I think this is, and this is a community, especially today's question, going to help a lot of the community that you sit in, these incredibly important CMOs and operators. I have a lot of compassion, right? I know this ecosystem now after, a decade and a half. Yeah. The media planning capabilities, structure, and to be frank, the objectives of the media agencies for their own margin, and I have empathy for their businesses. I'm in that business, though we come from a different angle. Really challenge flexibility. A lot of those companies have major deals with platforms and networks that they have to, I made a promise to NBC. I'm going to make sure that Ally runs a little bit more commercial, and I'm going to justify. I mean, that's real talk now, and I want to get to the real crux. Do you feel incredible about the flexibility, or is that a 500-pound gorilla that's hard to move, just so people can get a read of how challenging this actually? It sounds easy for all the small business and entrepreneurs that are listening. That's all they know. It's actually stunningly hard for big companies like yours.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think the advantage is that we've always had this scrappy challenger mentality, and we've always projected that ethos, and we've tried to reflect it in terms of the way that we've planned media. I mean, look, I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that there's always going to be this compendium of planning that will have a level of consistency, right? You're going to buy your broadcast with a level of consistency. You're going to go into the upfronts, and that's what you're going to have, and you're going to plan against certain kinds of media, but you have to remain flexible and in a perpetual state of motion, because you not only can you not predict what's going to happen throughout the year, you also can't predict where audiences are going to go. And I just take last year as a great example. You know, we always keep a pot of money for optimization. People like my CFO crazy sometimes, where she's like, why do you have all this fluidity in your plan? I need more predictability. But we have to have it because you have to go where your consumers are going. One of the big places we moved last year was into gaming. People at home, and we created an island on Animal Crossing. We did a ton around gamification. That wasn't anything that we could have seen at the beginning of the year. And if we didn't have the ability to push for that flexibility, and I think to your point, Gary, one of the things that we changed in terms of the way that we measure our agency partners, especially MediaCom, who's our media agency, is around creativity and media. And that becomes part of the KPIs that drive them. And I think that's where you get that tension between that long-term plan and I've got to be creative because I've got more to gain if I bring that creativity.
These are shotgun interviews, so we have 3 minutes. Andrea, when I say to you, what channel has your attention, either has already been incorporated into your media plan or is brewing in your mind as a leader, and will then think about, okay, let's really try to test this year so it's a bigger part of our 2022. Is there any platforms, and this could be in any it doesn't have to be the internet, like, is there anything brewing in that brilliant mind that has you like, look what's going on over at Clubhouse, or hey, I think print is back, baby. Like, is there anything brewing in your mind?
You know, what's the most interesting medium to me right now? Honestly, I mean, there's all the obvious ones, but outdoor. We have done some really interesting things in outdoor, and there's some incredible creativity that's happening there. And I think it gives you an opportunity to have a big stage.
Are the prices way down since people are in home? Like, when I hear outdoor, I mean, the amount of travel people, like the macro travel is collapsed. And so billboard, I think of like how many people are not on the road that saw billboards that are now just not on the road. Has the pricing become super attractive in that?
No, it's not. I don't even think about outdoor and just that. Like, I think about digital outdoor. I think about over the holidays, we projected the 20 best moments of the year on buildings around the country. I mean,
point still taken though. I assume common sense driving. People are just in their homes. We have a global pandemic. Are the prices adjusting or
adjusting a little bit? But you'd be surprised at the interaction. People just want to get out of their house, even if they're just walking around. So it's an interesting medium, and we've done some.
But real quick, because I'm fascinated by this. If everything went phenomenal, you'd have to expect on the greatest day ever, you're going to get 50% of as many people that would have saw those things on the building, let's say in 2018.
Yep.
My curiosity, not even anything else, is, that thought, like, you can't, I agree, people want to get out of their house, but like, I live in Manhattan. There's a lot more people indoor, and I look at everything, I think that's an interesting take.
Yeah. I mean, I think about it in terms of, as we start to plan coming out of this pandemic and the creativity that's there, and the new things that you can do with the medium that have never been available to you before, and the ability to put the brand on a big stage. Everybody's rushing to the same things right now: gamification, digital, those social platforms, et cetera. But as we get into the spring and we kind of get out from under this pandemic, People that are taking chances on those kinds.
Actually, we ran out of time. This is such a pleasure already, but it's great to see you. Continued success.
Thanks, Gary. See ya.
Thanks, Andrea. Next, we have Molly Batten, Vice President of Global Brand Marketing for Delta Airlines. Molly leads global corporate brand strategy and management at Delta, where she and her team are responsible for portfolio marketing, agency management, cross-promotion planning, and media, among many other things. Welcome, Molly.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Hey, Gary, how are you?
I'm well, Molly. How have you been?
I'm doing all right, thanks.
Good. Well, listen, there are very few industries that have been more affected than yours during this global pandemic. So, how's the company doing? How are you doing? It must be super challenging. And I obviously, because we have some mutual friends, I recall kind of pinging you when you first got the gig. And so you must have only been in place for a little over a year or somewhere in that range before this all hit. So before we even get into, and I'm actually, this is the one I'm probably most excited about, because I'd be dying to know how you're thinking about media planning wow, what a challenging thing. I'm pretty good at intuition and guessing, but this one's out of my realm, even like, when does it come back? Why don't you start with that? What's the opening rant to that energy?
Yeah, no, Gary, it's been a fascinating year. Yeah, I think it was last year at CES, we were trying to connect because I know you had done a lot of work with Turner where I was before, and a lot of help as we were launching brands and shows. So it is great to see you again, but it has been a wild ride. So I've been at Delta for a little over a year. So I've seen our best day ever last year, profit sharing day, February 14th, and to kind of the worst day ever. So from the top to the bottom, and we just saw the bottom fall out, as many across the industry and the travel industry did in March, and then just continued decline. And I will say it's been a fascinating learning process as we have had to rework and reinvent and innovate the airline from the inside out. Everything that we do by putting kind of our people and our customers front and center, from how we sanitize and clean every flight before every flight, how we, are still blocking the middle seat to make sure that our customers feel safe and comfortable when they travel, to partnerships with the Mayo Clinic and Lysol. I know more about air filtration now than I ever would have thought I would have, and just the airflow on the airplane. So it's been, we've moved from really creating demand and talking about travel inspiration to really having to educate our customers now. Travel is very different than it was last year. And we know that as people are coming back, whether it's your first time or you've been back many times, there's more and different information that you need now. And that is really affecting how we think about media planning into next year, because I'm sorry to interrupt, and even more, I would argue, not importantly, but equally as importantly, back to the creative messaging, right? Absolutely. Yeah. And so we, really headline is we've moved from broad-based kind of brand messaging to really audience first planning and messaging, because we have such a segmented.
And you have plenty of awareness. There's not a person on this right now that does not know what Delta is.
Right. So it's really about, we elevate and we talk what our brand is about, or we lead with our values. Our mission is no one better connects the world. But right now we have, as you look across the spectrum of the audiences, we've got, folks who are not really ready to travel yet. So we have to have messaging that can connect with them of, when you're ready, we're here for you, and that travel inspiration. To those that are hesitant and thinking about it, so how do we connect with them with targeted messages to let them know all the different things that we're doing to keep you safe when you travel, and educate them on what travel's like, to the people who are now traveling, and how do we make sure that they're feeling good and connected, and we keep pulling them back in. So it's really a very different messaging strategy that has led to a very different media strategy, and focusing on those audiences, and then identifying the right channels to hit them. I
apologize real quick. Jason Rivero says, stop interrupting, Gary. Jesus. I just want to remind everybody, these are 10-minute meetings. I'm desperately trying to get as much information out to everybody. These are my homies and friends. And so I apologize. I get it, but I just want to jump into Jason's comment and get a little more out of Molly. For example, Mom, any new platforms where the media is going because of this initiative? Like, do you have monies going into, whether it's a TikTok or a LinkedIn or pre-roll YouTube or OTT, a Hulu, like any interesting takes there?
I don't know so much new, but what we've seen is the increase in the impact of our social channels this past year has been critical. It's been a way for us to engage with our customers, leverage influencers, and really get our story across. And my social team has just completely stepped up and is really using it to inspire our travelers. So we see stories about the flight attendant who took the time to take care of the passenger, these inspirational, heartwarming stories about our people, stories about travel inspiration, because there's so much pent up demand. And we think that this revenge spending is going to come back in full force, hopefully next summer as this vaccine continues to be distributed. So
hold on, Molly, real quick. Did you just say
this coming summer?
Okay. So I just wanted to, no, because, it's funny. I think you're making an interesting point. I think all of us somewhere in the summer of last year said, oh man, like the ones that were really being honest were like, oh, we're going to come back next summer. This is wow. Oh my God. I thought it was going to be 2 weeks. I would argue that, and I have empathy and compassion for this. There's some realization of like, wait a minute, we're not going to be as back to normal like 2019, even this summer. And that actually gets me to the next point. Do you have any insights? Do you believe that in 24 months, well, let's say we're vaccinated out, we're kind of over the hump. Is it your anticipation that a high percentage of the people on the plane are going to wear masks even when we're back to normal? Do we get China-ficationed out? Like, do you believe that the US, from your perspective, like, I have been really thinking about this. I'm like, wow, will I ever take a flight again in my life where there's nobody wearing a mask? And my answer to myself was no. And not only no, I'm like, man, I bet you it's 25% of the flight is going to be there. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, Gary, I mean, it's hard to say, right? I think we're going to be seeing mask compliance for a while, even through the vaccine. We know it's important beyond, even as we continue to vaccinate the country. We know from guidance from Mayo Clinic and our partners that masks are an essential piece of kind of stopping the spread. So I think they're going to be here for a while. In terms of how long they're going to be with us, I can't really speculate, but I agree with you. I do think there's going to be percentages of people that just feel more comfortable when they travel. And it's not even past the pandemic. It's the person sneezing across the way from you, and that mask gives you some protection. So yeah, as to what level, I don't know, but I think there will be something that will carry through.
New platforms. I think I'm excited to ask people things that are starting to brew in your head of like emerging media platforms, because I think everybody who's watching, entrepreneurs, small businesses, and Fortune 50s, let alone Fortune 500s, can get value out of this question. Any new platforms or ones that they don't have to be new, but they've crossed over for you? Let's say OTT, you're like, oh wow, I'm going to take some of my TV money. You're Turner former executive, like you understand that landscape. Oh, I see some real value in the targeting of OTT, or I'm genuinely excited about the passive consumption of voice. So this Spotify ad product. Anything in your mind as a lead strategist to where the media planning goes? Anything starting to brew?
Yeah, we're looking at a lot of different things, again, really understanding where our audiences are and how we can deliver against it. I think there's a lot of interesting things going on in the podcast space as people have more time and are staying at home and kind of consuming that type of content. I do agree. I think streaming, we have seen huge shifts in the ways people are consuming media as people are home longer. Their viewing habits are changing. So how do we capture that attentive audience? I think as Andrea was saying, I do think out of home is interesting. You can do a lot more with it than we used to be able to. And we look at it not only on the paid assets, but how are we using our own assets and our earned placements in a different way so that we're really using them to educate along the entire travel journey. Because we've got, we're really lucky. Once we get you in the plane, we have a great in-flight video, connected cabin is kind of our vision. And so how can we make that inside the cabin feeling feel like your living room? And there's opportunity there to kind of talk to our loyal and current customers and reinforce our messaging and our branding and our values. So we're kind of thinking about it through the entire travel journey. And I think there's a lot of interesting things out there. And then new ways to connect, right? So moving beyond your traditional just straight spot, and how do we create more interactive ways for our customers to kind of interact with us? And we've been doing a lot in social around gaming and questions and quizzes, as well as kind of asking the experts. So we open up so that people could ask the questions that are on their mind, and we get the right experts to answer them. So playing around with Instagram stories, and so there's a lot of opportunity for creativity, I think, within media for next year. And I know there's need to continue to be agile and be able to move as budgets change and we're figuring out what this world looks like, and travelers kind of expand or collapse, hopefully more expand. But having that creativity, I think, is going to be key to helping us continue to break through. And so, we're really looking at different ways that it's a two-way conversation.
I love that, Mal. We're out of time. Have a great year. Good luck. I know it's a challenging one, but we're excited to see what you come up with.
Great, Gary. Thanks so much. Hope to see you on a flight soon.
You will.
Next, we welcome Rupen Desai, Global CMO at Dole, a company that believes everyone should have equal access to nutrition and health delivered in a positive and sustainable way. And he joins us from Singapore, I might add. He also co-founded TC28 to help organizations thrive in the conscience economy, and is a board member at Female Founders, dedicated to gender equality in entrepreneurship and leadership. Welcome, Rupen.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. And thank you for having me, Gary.
Rupen, is it past midnight?
It is.
I'm very impressed with you, sir.
No, but a lot of my life is spent with teams in LA. So this allows me the morning as they've been waking up. So I've been in calls from 6 a.m. LA time, unfortunately for the teams in LA.
Right.
Yeah.
Listen, it's a global world, and even more so now. Actually, Rupen, before we get into the core question, I assume that the Zoomification of our society through COVID has been a real blessing for you, given the separation as people become more comfortable to this. I'll give you an example. If you emailed me 24 months ago and said, Gary, I want to work with VaynerMedia, my brain goes to, this is a real opportunity. I need to get my ass to Singapore. That is a 4-day mission, 3-day mission, even the extreme way I travel. The fact that the business etiquette now allows for me and you to have that meeting like this for 2 hours is really quite powerful, no?
It is. I mean, my girls haven't seen as much of me as they have in the last 9 months. Okay, right. I remember my last flight being early March.
Yes, same.
Obviously, on a given day, they love it. On a given day, I'm sure members of the family don't as much.
Yep.
And I'm sure it's both ways. I think it's been a learning process for a lot of us as well, because we all come from the school of thought that physical presence, physical meetings absolutely matter, and we got to make the trudge and we got to do the flight. And while all of that is true, I think the last 9 or 10 months have shown us it's not probably as true as we would have all liked to believe.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's exactly right. Let's get to the core question. What is your take on the modern 2021 media plan? What does it look like? How do companies need to adjust, and where should they be shifting their monies or doubling down? Which platforms, which genres speak to you or the consumers you're trying to reach?
So I think we need to start from the fact that the currencies that we're chasing with our consumers have changed considerably over the years. I mean, we're talking about earning attention and earning trust with our consumers. And we sometimes forget that the key part of that is the earning part. So most platforms have got better at interrupting. I mean, we can interrupt better, we can interrupt faster, we can interrupt personalized, we can interrupt whichever area you were into, and that's got better and better. And while I don't underestimate the importance of interrupting, there's a huge part of earning the attention, earning the trust. I mean, the way I try and define it is dropping into a dinner that you're having on a Friday night, uninvited. Okay. And the moment I start talking about how I clean whiter than the whitest, how my molecule's bigger than your molecule on a Friday night in your house, it's going to be a very short conversation. So unless I'm purposeful, unless I'm interesting, unless I have something to offer of value, unless I have a joke to crack, unless I make you laugh. And there's no way I'm getting invited again, or you're ordering a second bottle of wine.
That's right.
So I think
let's talk about that. Do you then believe that the creative is a more important variable than the media plan?
it's a tango, isn't it?
Yep.
It's a tango. I don't think.
Dance. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a dance, and it's a dance that actually takes a cue from the other and evolves along the process.
Ruben, I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you believe that the biggest hole in marketing today is that the creative industry has struggled to make contextual creative to all these distribution channels?
I think we have got so excited by the potential of data, by the potential of personalization, by the potential that we have forgotten that the art is still in the conversation, the art is still in the earning attention, the art. So while all of those vehicles are extremely important, and the modern media plan is, it's a cacophony that needs to be orchestrated into some form of semblance of music. I think the starting point will have to be, how do I stop interrupting? And if I can't, how do I at least make it worthwhile for you as I interrupt your life? And we do this. You see, the weird part, Gary, about this is we're all in meetings and we're all having this conversation. It's wonderful. And we step out to check our own Facebook and we're behaving exactly the opposite.
I'm going to go through this screen right now and kiss your beautiful head. You understand that, Ruben?
Oh,
this is no, but listen, this is my existence. This is why VaynerMedia exists. I mean, I just don't understand how people spend all their money on things that they know is not true, or do not hold the creative contextual to the platform. They just know that consumers don't respond to it, but there is so much incredible comfort in doing things in the past, or to conform to a reporting mechanism internally. You got it. The reporting that justifies the behavior that advances one's career. And I'm empathetic to that. You know, you're trying to pay a mortgage, you're taking care of your family. So if the internal MMM is based on GRPs or impression, like, I understand, but it is a very intriguing moment in marketing because of that.
Yeah, we're agreeing. We're agreeing. And I think the other big challenge for marketing, and I'm going to completely sidetrack from the question.
Do your thing.
Is the impact brands can have on people, communities, societies beyond just the profit bit. Okay, and the three P's have always had a fight with each other, particularly over the last few decades: people, prosperity, and the planet. I mean, one usually comes at the cost of the other. But I think, if nothing else, COVID needs to teach us that one thing that the three need to live. They're so interdependent. They can't come at the cost of each other. We have to find business models in marketing, in business, in how we communicate, but at a larger society where planet and communities, planet and people are interdependent with prosperity and thrive together.
I think that's exactly right. I think that people make up excuses in business. There used to be a time when we used child labor, and the excuses were, well, how are we going to be able to get this done if we take all the children out of the workforce? We figured it out. This notion that we can't do good both sides of the equation is a silly, lazy answer, my friend.
And look, I look into the eyes of, I have two young girls, 7 and 4, and I know that everything I am potentially doing is going to leave behind a worse of planet and a worse of world to them.
Correct.
So if there's nothing else I do in life as a dad, I need to use whatever I do at work, obviously, to make sure their education gets paid off if they do want to learn some stuff. But the amount of influence we have as brands and all the people on this, the amount of influence we have has to make a difference beyond next quarter's ROMI, which is still stuck somewhere in the 1960s of calculating.
100%. My friend, this was quite enjoyable. I'll be in Singapore soon, and we're going to have dinner because you excited me here today. Take care of yourself.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Andrea, for having us.
Thank you, Ruben. Next up, we welcome Andrea Sullivan, CMO of KFC US. Andrea leads marketing, advertising, media, and consumer insights, as well as the brand's digital initiatives, driving sales overnight and brand over time. Prior to joining KFC, Andrea served many marketing roles at P&G. Welcome, Andrea.
Hi, Gary. How are you?
I'm well, Andrea. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's so good to see you. Happy New Year.
Same to you. Let's get right into it.
Yeah.
You've got such a progressive brand. Some of the things you've been, the gaming console thing you did, like there's some really cool stuff you're doing. As you walk in, you're welcome. You deserve it. As you walk into 2021, given all the conditions, trying to figure out the timing of COVID, delivery, all the dynamics you're thinking as a QSR. By the way, I'm mentioning a lot of acronyms here. VaynerX World, please get into the comments in all these communities and break down what MMM and QSR, quick service restaurant, by the way, on that one, or all the other things that I'm saying here. There's a lot of chatter in the community, so let's get some community management going and value to the community. Or anybody who's watching, look out for that and answer. Andrea, what do you think about from a media plan? Who's getting more of your money this year compared to last year? Is that TikTok? Is that Facebook? Is that television? Is that print? What's brewing? How are you thinking about creative into that? What's the 411?
Yeah. So, I think there's a few things. The first thing is just like we've had to learn to be flexible, just like everybody else, right? Yes. We had to change everything in our brand in 4 days because customers needed us to cook them buckets of comfort food, right? But from a media perspective, what we're really digging in on and what I think the real magic of this kind of modern media plan is really how we play across those channels, right? People are overwhelmed. They're flocking to places that don't have advertising, right? Or limited advertising. And we've got
AKA the incredible growth of Netflix that doesn't have commercials, right?
Exactly.
Right, because I'm sure KFC has an extremely strong TV execution, but if every day somebody's not watching Bravo or ESPN, what do you like? Where I sit on this. We know each other a little bit. I think that's hurting big brands tremendously. I think they're throwing good money into a cannon that nobody's listening to.
Yeah, and we have to think about the attention that we do get. We have to treat it as really precious, right? And so we're trying to make sure that everything we put out there is, number one, authentic and insightful, right? Which is more important to customers than ever, right? That I know who you are, you're consistent with that, and you really get me, and you really understand me. And then with that is making sure that we're doing things that are useful, that we're creating content and experiences that people actually want to be part of, and that is actually useful in their lives, and then native across platforms. I know, Gary, you and I have talked about this, no more matching luggage, right? That has to be a thing of the past, right? And so we're trying to use each platform for what it's best at. We don't want to just go out and shout at every moment, buy KFC, buy a KFC, buy a KFC. There's some places that are really good for that, like our performance media that we're doing, but there are other places where we need to be useful and authentic in other ways. We've got to, think about how each of those elements built up, right? Each channel, each element is building up into the way KFC as a brand shows up in total in people's lives. All those touch points should not do the same thing. They have to build up to tell a holistic story. And then I know you guys just talked about this, but the power of creativity is never been more important. We got to think about how the messaging fits across each of those platforms. And the truth is, data has never been more important either, but an algorithm can't do this for us.
Yeah, the data
that does it.
The data sets you up to say something. So good, you're informed, but if you still say something that's not interesting, you're not interested.
Right. Yeah, something that's not interesting, something that's not authentic, something that's not useful, right? An example where we did this recently, you were talking about some of the things we've done, and this came together really powerfully for us, was this Lifetime movie we did in December, which was a 15-minute mini movie on Lifetime. We co-created it with Lifetime, called Recipe for Seduction. Mario Lopez was Colonel Sanders with he's an up and coming chef with a secret recipe and a dream. Super authentic to our brand, also super authentic to Lifetime. Like if you had a chance to watch it, like we played up the Colonel and His Secret Recipe, but in a story that had every element, twist and turn you'd have from a Lifetime movie. But the thing that the reason this blew up and people just got so excited about it, we got billions of impressions, was that it was really useful. Like back, even now, but at the end of the year, like people just needed like good old fashioned escapism. To like be able to get away. And we were able to provide that as a brand. Now, it's not that we weren't still trying to find a way to sell fried chicken. We had an Uber Eats promotion that was dinner and a movie that once you got down the funnel and you got onto some of those platforms that are closer, where someone's maybe closer to wanting to buy that fried chicken, then we are telling them like, hey, you can go get this Uber Eats promotion and get a dinner delivered and watch the movie.
To not interrupt, but Philip Smoke says we need practical talk, not overviews of what big brands are doing. So let's play with this entrepreneur's point of view. From a tactical standpoint, there's a lot of people watching right now that might have one unit instead of the many that you have. When people think about actually getting people, to your point, to buy delivery, when you think about that lower funnel, right? Because Philip can't buy a Super Bowl spot like you can, right? But where are you seeing good performance to get people's intent to buy on one of these platforms? Because on an Uber Eats, whether you're KFC or you're Luigi's single, meatball shop in Columbus, Ohio, there's a democratization there. What are you seeing in the lower funnel attention brand game? Because I'm seeing a lot more brand work in the lower funnel, not just 2 for 1 and things of that nature. Anything stand out for you when I go that narrow?
No, I mean, I think that is where the data really comes in, right? And that is where the algorithms can work really hard for you, right? You got to have the right offer and the right messaging and you all kinds of A/B testing to figure out what's going to be more powerful. But that's where you'd really understand what is my audience that I'm going after and let the data guide that audience. And then what we're finding is those channels also depend greatly on the audience. We might go one place to sell buckets of chicken to families because at 4:30 at night, I've realized I have no idea what the heck I'm going to feed my family for dinner tonight. So I'm going to serve them up a bucket promotion, and that's that audience. And that might do really well at 4:30 on a news channel, right? But then I also have my lunch crew, right, of like people that are like, workers that need to go and grab some lunch and they really just need a big abundant eat for lunch. And that might be better served up on Facebook because they're checking their news feed before they go on their lunch and figure, when they get to their lunch break and they are trying to decide where to go. So it really is, I think, audience specific and data driven.
The chicken sandwich wars. I mean, this has been a American phenomenon. Any cool thinking around that, or are there any media channels that have over-indexed in that game? And
Gary, we've just announced this month. We just announced our entry, call it.
Yes, I'm aware.
into those chicken sandwich wars, and so we're building those plans as we speak.
Understood.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is, I will tell you, like chicken sandwiches have never been more popular than they ever been ever.
It truly feels like we're in that moment of American consumer transition to the chicken sandwich becoming the staple more so than the burger.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. We're just seeing a big draw to comfort food. Like people, if you just think about what people are experiencing in their lives, like even before COVID, by the way, but then that just put it on steroids and everything else that has happened. Like there is something that happens to your brain. Like I think Ina Gardner said in her most recent book, like you can feel sad or depressed before you eat comfort food. You can feel sad or depressed after you eat comfort food. But when you're eating comfort food or that delicious fried chicken sandwich that we have like handcrafted, it's almost impossible in your brain to feel sad. Yep. So I think the chicken sandwich wars are really happening because of that, a true consumer need and want for comfort food. So even as we think about being useful, there is a use even for that comfort food.
I appreciate you. I hope you have a great year.
It's great to see you. Thanks, Gary. Take care. Have fun.
Next up, Mandy Rassi, Vice President, Head of Marketing for the Kroger Company. Mandy leads marketing across Kroger's $120 billion business that spans 22 retail banners, 2,800 physical stores, and a seamless e-com platform. Her team includes brand strategy, planning, performance marketing, media, and Kroger's internal creative agency. Prior to joining Kroger, Mandy spent 14 years at P&G. Welcome, Mandy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hey, Mandy.
Hi.
I like your painting.
Thank you.
Happy New Year. And let's just get right into the core, which is how is one of the largest leading supermarket retailers in the country thinking about marketing, from a media planning standpoint? Like from your standpoint, when I say what does the modern media plan look like in 2021, the real question there is you got the lower funnel, you got the mid funnel, you got the upper funnel, AKA, social media, OTT, you got television, as a supermarket, direct mail and coupon. There's a lot going on in your world. 120 billion sounds like a big girl number. So is there anything, because of the COVID situation and or the modern consumer shifts, is there anything getting a bigger piece of the pie, or any interesting insight that you can share for the people that are thinking about this?
Yeah, lots has changed. I think COVID, obviously, in the grocery retail business and all things food, as Andrea talked about too, is a big shift, right? Everybody's eating at home far more than they did before. People aren't out driving around. The way you think about whether you want to go to a store or not, and the implications on e-commerce have just been massive this year, really accelerating the innovation in some positive ways as well. The challenge we have is exactly what you laid out. We have all the things, right? We can send coupons personalized for you directly to your house, or you can access them in our app, all the way to like the typical top of funnel stuff. And we have a ton of data. And in many ways, that's very useful. But the challenge is having it all be connected and integrated as we think about the data that we have. So in an average month, we have about 11 million people who are coming through our doors. And then if you think about that on an annual basis, it's a big number. So we have a lot of data. And it can be easy to get in the details of that and try to measure everything. And we do measure a lot of things to help it drive our choices. But some of it is like back to basics right now, when everything feels a little bit frenetic, is really stepping back to who are the key customers that we need to be relevant to, and what do they actually need, and why are we uniquely suited to help them? And I think really coming back to those brass tacks of the needs people have, which in the food space actually haven't changed that much. They just get amplified.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume, sorry to interrupt, I would assume a lot more people are cooking at home, which means they're going to choose you as the infrastructure for that versus going to a restaurant. That must have some interesting shifts. And I think the other thing that, if people aren't very educated about this marketplace, the margins that you play with are so small, food goes bad. Like the supermarket industry, the reason the companies have become so big is you need scale to really make it work, because it's a very challenging business.
You got it. And then like, imagine now being the marketer or managing the media budget in a very margin tight environment. Each dollar needs to work really hard. And that's where I think we just have to be very focused on who are the customers that we need to win with? What do they need right now? And how is this context impacting all of those food jobs that they have? And then really build a plan, looking across that whole content ecosystem to think about when do those moments happen and how are they different for you, for me, at 8 o'clock today, at 4 o'clock today, at midnight, to really have a detailed plan. But in some ways, the plan is so big, you can't control it, right? So I don't see everything that goes out. It would be literally impossible.
Of course, you have people, that's why you have to build a great team.
Totally. And be crystal clear on the audiences, the needs we're trying to meet, and what our business objectives are, and sort of the intersection of those things, because then you can kind of set up the machine to go off and deliver those things. But if we're not clear at the start, then you have total chaos, because we have so much data. You can optimize a channel all day long if you like to, but it won't necessarily get us where we need to go in the total picture if it's not in service of a common objective.
Speaking of target audiences, Phil Smoke again says, Gary, bring on a marketer to help the little guys grow and showcase their tactics. Big brands have big budgets and most of your viewers are working on the come up. Philip, I would say back to the way I think everybody should be thinking, grocers and you, brother, is, as you are aware, I put out 50 to 70 pieces of content a day, and I would argue 79 to 90% of that actually is for SMBs and entrepreneurs. More than half the viewers of this right now are corporate Fortune 5,000 individuals or marketers. The comments are normally where more of the entrepreneurs are, but the consumption of this. So Philip, it's funny. The question is so right? I could have so much empathy. Marketing for the now is absolutely a Fortune 500 ecosystem. I do think when you think about the dynamics that come from these big brands, there are takeaways to your point, but on the micro stuff, that's what I'm doing on a daily basis. So for others thinking like Philip, I just wanted to address that. Back to you, Mandy. Any new platforms part of your media mix this year?
We have shifted. I don't know if there's anything that is totally new. Gaming probably would be the one that we want to get into this year that we've not been in. But it's a big shift of where we've been, right? Grocery retail has not always been the most innovative from a media point of view, and we do need to reach a lot of people. But I think we've been over invested for too long in some very traditional places where, frankly, people just aren't engaging to all the things the people before me said and the points you made. So really thinking about the places, frankly, where I can use the data more. I know the ROI is significantly higher as long as we get the content right to kind of fit that context. And that's really
let's talk about that ecosystem. You know, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Google, YouTube, anything kind of that you're excited to dig deeper into, or actually even a more interesting question, anything that you were able to take advantage of, maybe some of the found time in COVID life that allowed you to become a little bit more of a practitioner or detail oriented? Back to your point, you're way up here. One of the things that was a really interesting observation for me is like, ooh, my combos are getting better because I'm in the dirt, Mandy. Back to Philip's point earlier, because of my brand and what I do, I'm so in the trenches that there's a level of practitionership that I bring in the agency Fortune 500 ecosystem that's quite different than the industry I'm in. I was excited to see a lot of marketers take advantage of COVID to get more in the trenches, look under the hood, because they found back time of travel and things of that nature. Did you have that luxury, or was there too much going on? Or did you have anything like that kind of said, oh, wait a minute, I didn't realize how good this was working, or this is interesting. Did anything stand out when I go that narrow?
Branded social, for sure. And we had a gift in a way. There was a lot of immediate stuff we had to get out, but there was a lot of stuff that also got turned off. When you think about the weekly promotional stuff that we get a lot of word out on, got turned off in April and May. And we were able to reinvest into some places we'd wanted to do more. And I will say branded social, as we've gotten better at the content matching the platform, frankly, we've, I think, done better with our influencer strategy, which food is, by the way, a pretty fun space for.
Ton
of
fun idea.
And especially when people are cooking at home and looking for ideas and all that, it's been a really fun playground to be in. And as we really tighten the lens to be more about food inspiration, having some fun with it, getting tighter, frankly, getting more diverse in our influencer mix has been a very big focus for us this year. And as we would all expect, that works. People want to see people who look like them. They want to see a diverse representation. And I'm very proud.
Go figure.
Right.
Is Twitch part of the media spend because gaming's in, or is it more about doing influencer work, or is it more on the content side distributed in different platforms?
So we're working through it now. I can't share all of it. I will say it won't be Twitch because they're owned by a competitor, which creates some challenges for us there, but also on some of the streaming platforms that creates just some places where we're not going to go right now.
I think that's fair. With that said, it's great to see you. Continued success, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Next, Aron North joins us as the CMO of Ultra and Mint Mobile, the fastest growing brand in wireless. Aron has been a tour de force when it comes to bringing fresh thinking and disruptive behaviors to both brands, and he's received multiple Cannes Lions, Addies, and Effies over his career. Welcome, Aron.
Thank you. Hi, Gary. What's up, buddy?
What's up is you've got me fired up with that basketball hoop back there, like I'm jonesing.
Oh, man, because world champs, baby.
Listen, I'm very happy. I own an obnoxious amount of LeBron James rookie cards, and I need him to capture a couple more rings. You don't happen to have the actual basketball near you, do you?
I've got basketballs in my garage, yeah.
Okay, because I think I want to see around the room, because I hope you're not dodging it, because I was going to make you take a shot. It was going to be a big moment here. Anyway, Aron, Mint, such an interesting challenger brand, doing some really creative stuff. Let's interstitial some of that creativity, but the core question, the media dollars.
Yeah.
You know, any big shifts for you in 2021 off of the back of what we've seen, lower, mid, or upper funnel? Any new things in digital? Have you added TikTok? Have you taken away Facebook? Have you added print? Have you taken it away? Give us a lay of how y'all are thinking about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, awesome, by the way, so far, all the speakers, and I can talk to the small brand because we're small. We're growing like crazy, but we are small. And I think, you know, what's important for us is that we're a direct-to-consumer brand. So you're going to think and see a lot of the performance marketing tactics. But we run different, man. We do a different game. So I believe there are a couple of media principles that aren't being applied. And as the CMO, it's my job to make sure we're thinking about the broader business, not just a single tactic of performance. And the thing I think a lot of people are missing today is risk. I don't think people are putting enough risk into their media plans. So I take our media budget and I take 10% of that and I put it into the unproven, the unknown, the untested. And those don't always have to be digital tactics as well. They don't have to be performance tactics. I was reviewing what we did this last year, and we did some crazy stuff that just brands weren't doing. Like when the pandemic hit on Friday the 13th, stay-at-home order comes in California, we immediately started pulling down our media spend. But we can, because we have a performance media plan where we can turn down television immediately. We can turn down digital immediately. So we did that. And we didn't take that money and keep it. We reapplied it back to our consumer base by giving them free data upgrades, right? So that's a choice we made. It was risky because it stopped the influx of new customers, but it took care of existing. And I think that was a risk because it was unproven, but it saved our asses, man. Like our churn dropped dramatically because we were taking such good care of our customers. And we've inserted new things. We're doing things.
Farming, I'm sorry to interrupt, just for everybody here, farming versus hunting, right?
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people are so obsessed with new when so much of business growth, and back to the small businesses on here, because small businesses are so obsessed with the new. One of the reasons I was able to build my dad's business in such a substantial way was I was obsessed with keeping everyone we got.
Yeah. And look, so Christmas just passed, or the holiday season. We took media dollars out of our media budget and put it into holiday cards. We sent every single one of our subscriber a stamped envelope holiday card. There was no sales message. There was nothing in there. It just had some light Ryan creative in there, and people loved it.
Let's talk about what the Ryan creative is, because a lot of people may not know. Reference what that's all about.
So in 2019, November of 2019, Ryan Reynolds bought Mint Mobile. So he is now one of our owners. He's the tour de force on creative. He's an absolute just gem to work with, brilliant, creative, strategic guy. And I'm really excited. We may have some content dropping later today.
No, okay. Oh, nice. I like that. Now I'm hyped. He is a juggernaut of culture. I agree with that. What about biggest learning about media for you, Aron? We're all learning. I'm in this every day. I think I'm as good as it gets. I'm proud of my work, and I'm stunned how on a weekly basis I learn a new little thing. So we're all always learning. Anything stand out as a good learning for you during COVID? Because again, like I mentioned earlier, for a lot of us leaders, it was a year where we could get a little bit deeper. So as you were going through that, anything stand out like, I didn't realize LinkedIn did this, or wow, podcasts do that? Or when I ask that question, does anything spark?
Yeah, but it's not one singular thing. We've had, the very early days of the pandemic were very difficult. I think everybody's business was struggling. But as we started to emerge and, the fear left, but uncertainty was still there, we realized it was an opportunity to stretch, push, and grow. So we started pushing for that. And we launched a new product, the Unlimited plan. We didn't have that before. And it's crazy because I think, this is going to sound so blatantly obvious, but when you have a good consumer offer and smart creative and you're not trying to be too clever, like just get it out there, everything hit at once. Like everything started working. So our digital budgets expanded, our TV budgets expanded. We're doing more like classic direct mail. That might be a big shocker for most people, but we're doing more direct mail than ever, and it's performing. I mean, people are stuck at home and they're checking the mailbox. So direct mail has been a real killer, which was.
Do you find direct mail play differently geographically, financially? You know, I did a lot of direct mail for my dad's business, and trying to give some education to people thinking about direct mail, you know, for certain things, higher income levels, for certain things, much lower income levels, you know, mile radius awareness overlays. Like, how detailed into that direct media do you see?
Yeah, so we've got a really interesting program where we don't use your traditional vendors like a Valpak or a Velasys or any of those. What we've done is we went with a company who centered themselves on creating direct-to-consumer partnerships. So the brands that we're next to in this mailer are the Caspers, Warby's, Dollar Shaves, Hims, and the piece is premium. Like it looks good. It's got good quality paper, oversized envelope. It doesn't feel like junk mail. So that helps the open rates for them. And then
it's less junky mail.
Yes, exactly.
No,
it's
but really,
classy.
I mean, it's classy, not ashy. Keep going.
No, and that's been a hell of a one for us. And I think, you know, the other thing people need to realize is they have tools in their systems they just haven't discovered yet. Like, we're a wireless provider. You know, we realized as long as we're providing a service update to the customer, we have access to do something most brands don't. We can leave a voicemail on their inbox, right? So we can do that. That's something that is unique to us, and we do it now. So we have big news coming. We've had big news in the past, and we'll let Ryan record a voicemail, or he wants to record a voicemail, I should say, letting the customers know, hey, your service just got better. And that's a media vehicle unique to us. But I challenge the people watching to really look at their business and understand if they're handing out paper receipts, can you do something special there? This personalization, customization is key, man. And you got to be able to do that. And I think if you're really looking out for the customer, your message is going to be received. For example, we're actively right now, we launched Unlimited, but the reality is you don't need it. Most people just don't need it. So we're actively telling people, hey, you're probably overpaying us, right? It's better for you to trade down and save even more money. Now, that's a sort of a terrible business decision if you're looking at short-term revenue. It's a fantastic proposition for long-term business health. And we use our own platforms for that to do the customer right. And I think if you're doing your media and your message that way, that's a customer solid, it's just going to perform better.
I appreciate that. When you think about media, because we're siloing it out here, how do you think about the contextual creative for those pipes? Do you feel the conversation's advancing to a place where those two disciplines need to be far closer? Because we've gone through this great era of really siloed executions on the infrastructure and the marketing landscape and in individual companies. As the internet grabs up more, you know, it's a very fascinating thing to see those disciplines come back together in the corporate world. It obviously stays together in the mid and SMB world. Thoughts on that?
You mean creative and media together?
Yes.
Yeah. So we don't execute plans of just media. Like, our marketing is baked into what we do. The creative is way upstream, right? We're laying out a general strategy for the year with product releases, service enhancements, and et cetera. But we're baking marketing into this. This idea of unlimited, right? Like, where you don't need unlimited, we're going to trade you down, was an insight that was built at product creation. We knew we had this marketing built into it. So we put that into the plan. Ryan dropped a video about Unlimited. What people didn't know was there was an Easter egg. So we went back, you know, a couple months later and said, hey, you guys missed this. By the way, we're going to tell you can save money. And that message is all over our media. So we're not really even selling Unlimited at the time. We're selling the idea that we have Unlimited, but you don't need it. So come to us. Real quick, I apologize to interrupt because we have 1 minute. I want to give Drav Garg this question. He keeps texting it. It's a good question. Aron, is there something you would consider of value in another telecom company that Mint is currently struggling to implement, or for that matter, is considering? A value of another telecom? I'd say no. Like, we are, quite frankly, these guys they're bad. This is bad business. Like, you don't hear people say, I love my wireless provider. It's like an airline, man. Like, We're trying to do the opposite of what those guys are doing. Look, I'm envious. They have massive customer bases and gigantic budgets, but we're not that brand. And we're going to keep doing the opposite of what they're doing. They're running these games. We're doing the opposite. We're going to be straight and consumer centric.
Cheers, brother. Have a great 2021.
Good to see you.
Dara Tressiter joins us next as SVP, Head of Global Marketing and Communications at Peloton, the world's largest interactive fitness platform. She oversees brand and strategic marketing, consumer insights and strategy, communications, and creative to build the Peloton brand, growth, and international expansion. A vet C-suite marketer, Dara was previously at Carbon, GE, Apple, and Goldman Sachs. Welcome, Dara.
Thank you so much. So glad to be here. Good to see you, Gary. Happy 2021.
Same to you. It's so good to see you. I mean, this will be a lot of fun. I mean, you're sitting on as hot of a brand as there is, which I'm sure has its own, challenges, high class problems in comparison to others. Just for 4 seconds before we go into the direct question, what an incredible time for this brand. Obviously nobody's excited about a global pandemic and there's so much pain, but we're just going to put this into business terms. The product was so built for the moment. That must have been crazy.
Yeah, I think I give so much credit to our incredible founder, John Foley. He knew a truth which more people have come to see, which is you can get an enjoyable, energetic, effective workout from the comfort of your home with a connected fitness product. Well, when he came up with that idea, it was novel, right? And you've seen how the category has grown and expanded thanks to his leadership and Peloton's leadership. So, I think the pandemic has accelerated the trend, but this is a permanent shift. This is a permanent shift that people are now enjoying, exercising, connecting with friends and family from the comfort of their home using a connected fitness product.
When you think about media planning this year, it's obviously an interesting time for this brand and an opportunistic time. Is there anything that's made the cut this year that wasn't part of 2020's plan, which was a reaction to the insights that you garnered from 2020?
Yeah, I think I would say there are sort of two big things. I think one is the relationship between creative and media. I think more than ever before, that connection is so critical, right? It's so important that early up, when we're thinking about the marketing strategy and the plan, that creative and media are involved upfront. And are actually working together to determine what makes the most sense. Because I think gone are the days where, creative might just come up with an idea, in a silo, and media does kind of the media planning and just the creative hands off over the assets. That's not the reality.
You are aware, because I know your pedigree, that is the far majority of the behavior of the Fortune 500 landscape.
And I think that's what I'm saying is that shouldn't be. So I think if you're kind of if you're leading what you hope to be a modern marketing organization, you really can't operate that way. And that's what, I'm really excited about the work that we've done together as a team at Peloton. And I say we, right, because it's really, working together with my amazing teammates, is come together and updated our campaign process so that connection and partnership between creative and media is happening so much more seamlessly. That is enabling us to, I think, really perform better and deliver work that pushes the brand and the business forward. So I think that's just something that's so critical and so important. And I know it's not kind of the traditional way our industry has run. You kind of have media folks and creative folks. And I think that integration is so critical and so important.
And I apologize. And not only that, as you know, it's also top down in boardrooms, subjective calls, push it down, matching luggage on the internet, versus what happens when you integrate creative and media together in ththese lower and mid funnels, which branding is now being done. And you're able to actually use it as a consumer insights driver to funnel up instead of matching. Yeah, Dara, I don't think most people understand how upside down the whole thing is.
I agree with you. And I think that There's
when in your career did you first have the taste? This one's probably quite progressive compared to knowing your Rolodex. Was it here where you were like, oh shit, this is much deeper than I realized, or was it somewhere along the line?
It was actually probably the first time I became a CMO when I had the ability, right, to like effect change, that I realized, oh, it doesn't have to have, I don't need to do it the way it's always been done. This can be better. And then trying it out and seeing the result inspired me. So now I've kind of carried that with me in all of my sort of, all the other roles I've been in. But it was the first time when I had the opportunity to be in leadership where I realized I can make a change. And guess what? This is so much better. And I think it's really important that we see that, as marketers, and that we bring that to our organization.
What do you tell your fellow Fortune 500 CMOs that know that you're further down that path when they hit you up? Like, what's your advice to them, knowing that the troubles they have with their holding company relationships or their board or their internal MMM, or like, how do you consult them on bringing that to a reality?
Honestly, I tell them the success stories. Right. Because I think many times people, are moved, even though I'm a creative storyteller, but also data driven. People are moved by data, then they're moved by stories. So being able to say, well, here's an example of what we did, here's how it worked. I think that kind of inspires them to be able to go back to their teams. And I always say, why don't you try it? You don't have to start it with everything. Try it with a few projects so you have some strong, proof points that you can then use to sort of, especially for those that are working where they have such large teams, it would take a substantial, reorganization, recalibration, changing culture, right, to drive. But I honestly believe that is the future of marketing. I think that is the way that we need to operate as an organization. One of the key things, one of our key values at Peloton is empower teams of smart creatives. How do you do that if you don't have when we say the creatives, we don't only mean people who work in creative, right? Even in media, there's a lot of media innovation and media creativity. How can we empower our teams if we don't bring them together to be able to think?
Agreed. And what about something we call post-creative strategists, right?
Exactly.
Who's doing the qualitative read through on the work?
Exactly.
Because, the math shows one story, but the 17,000 comments across all that content in a month has incredible consumer insight.
Exactly.
Is that a big part of your world? It's a huge part.
It's a big part. So, I've got the consumer strategy and insights team as well. And so when we look at our current campaign process, we have our media team, our creative team working with the consumer strategy and insights team, working together as one, right? Whether it's with the brand marketer or the product marketer, kind of leading that effort in order to bring about the best work. And I think it's that, connection between all these teams working together, not just, I ship something to you, you go do this, but being included up front. I think even in the ideation sessions, in the strategic sessions, I think allows each of these experts to be better at what they do.
I understand. Audio I got 2 minutes. I can speak to you for 2 hours. 2 minutes on audio. Is it a part of your mix? How are you thinking about it? You start to see the emergence of things like Clubhouse. We've got an incredibly emerging, interesting thing with Spotify ads, podcasting. Thoughts on audio?
I think audio is important, right? I think the power of voice is important. And we actually, I think, experience that as a brand in a very strong way because, our instructors are speaking and they're unscripted, right? And there's some of the most intelligent, talented, inspiring people you've ever met. And they're speaking from their experience, from their story. So audio, I think, plays an interesting role because it's living within our product. But even in our marketing, it also sort of lives within that space as well. And when I think about some of the offerings we have on our platform, like outdoor running, right? That's really audio. That's the instructor speaking to you. So I think the way we think about audio is as opposed to it just sitting outside as just this one thing, we think about how do we incorporate this into the different expressions of the Peloton brand? And how do we use that to continue to cultivate and build connection within our community, with our members?
This was riveting. I appreciate you. I wish you continued success. I really mean it.
Thank you so much, Gary. It was so great to be on here with you. Really and thanks for all you're doing for the industry. It's always great to kind of get your insights and wisdom, and just really excited to be here.
You're very sweet. Thank you.
Next, we welcome Steve Lesnard, Global VP and Product and Marketing at North Face. Steve is an industry vet with more than 20 years of experience in driving growth, leading global brand campaigns, and launching revolutionary products and partnerships across sports, technology, and lifestyle. Previously, Steve spent 2 decades at Nike. Welcome, Steve.
Ooh, Steve, you're on mute, brother. No worries.
You would think that I would know by now. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, brother. You're on mute is a required thing said at least 4 times a day. I also want to apologize in advance. I'm distracted by the tchotchkes and collectibles. I kind of just want to come to your house and garage sale the wall, but
I'm a collector. I collect.
I like it. I like it. Steve, apparel. It's a fun, so much going on in your world.
Yeah.
Again, probably one of the sneakier, we hear a lot about the airline and hotel industry. We hear a lot about local restaurants. I think people are not talking as much around the clothing and apparel industry, which has clearly been affected by COVID. Talk to me about how you go into media planning, because that's the theme for today.
Yeah.
In this new year. Are there some different things you're doing as a reaction to the realities of business? The lower funnel conversion on .com, awareness. Give me some 411. Give me a kickoff to how you're thinking about 2021 media planning.
Yeah, I think what Aron and Dara said was very relevant. I think for us, it always starts with understanding our consumer better. We're equipped. I was just talking to actually some of our athletes. We equip some of the best athletes to go on the far corners of the world, but really we also equip a lot of consumers who just want to enjoy the outdoors. And what we've seen during the pandemic is a real surge for people to actually spend time outside, because that's the only thing we could do. True. And so for us, what we find really, powerful is if we can identify the need of our consumer based on where they're at in their journey. I'm planning a hiking trip. I'm planning a camping trip. If we can actually, show up in their feed when it matters most with the right information, that has proven to be quite transformational for us. We've seen a massive hike of camping, of hiking, believe it or not, even snow sports. People have, have wanted to, spend some time outside. And so the idea of better understanding our consumer base, where they are in their journey, so that we can show up, in the right way, is a big pivot that we're doing for us. So when you think about media, you said it, like the media approach has been, for our industry, very big idea driven, upper funnel media, and we're really completely changing that. The way we like to think about it is it's everything is mobile first, because in any consumer journey, and we have gearhead, we have people who really want to understand the product they're going to buy, and for the activities they have. So we want to make sure that through a mobile first approach, we can provide the right info at the right time in their journey. That's the big approach. And I have to say, it's really interesting because it's forcing us to think very differently of thinking about the medium, the channel, as early as when you create concepts and creative.
100%. I mean, to me, that's like oxygen, to not think about distribution and the context of this. There's television, print, you just knew the size of it, and then you put the idea in. The amount of products, features, platform, slang differences between a TikTok and a LinkedIn, which your brain could play amazing in both, is really remarkable.
Well, I'll tell you what's interesting too is it also triggers some really good conversation for us with our team around the need for speed and agility to react. and how do you get there? What are the right partners that can think that way?
And casting of your team, right?
Exactly. And how do you set it up internally as well, so that you can do it the right way? I think there's going to be a massive shift, in the way brands, work with partners and agencies to really cater to that need, because the partners that won't be able to adapt will force brands to create these internal
in-house, 100,000%.
Yeah.
Steve, I got to ask you an extremely important question. How many times a day, when COVID's not real, in real life, how many times a day do people say that you look like Clark Kent? Because what's going on in the comments right now is completely unbearable. And I need to know, on average, is it 3.6? Is it 5.9? Is it 13? On average, how much Clark Kent do you get in a week, a day?
Never heard that, but I'm becoming blind. I have to wear this to see you, Gary.
Oh, so you've never gotten, but now you're just adding. This is the beginning of the journey of the Clark Kent.
I like that. That's funny. Thank you.
Your brand is very revered. There's a secondary market for your products. In this contemporariness and need for speed, it makes a lot of sense, right? Like, to me, that must be the big anxious moment that you're thinking through. Like, how do you get that there? Because the brand doing that perfectly is going to really succeed because it has so much equity in it. Have you started dabbling into aggressive influencer, TikTok? Are you thinking about how to integrate, since there's no ad product, into something even as progressive as Clubhouse? How good do you feel about your cutting edge marketing right now?
I would say we've got a long way to go. The great thing is we have a team that is solely dedicated to thinking about it in that way. We like to also we're learning where our consumer base is consuming information, because what we're finding out is climbers, snowboarders, trail runners, they consume information differently in different channels. So we're trying to to be a lot more savvy in the best way to present information in the right channels. I would say, Gary, we're just starting. The fun thing about the North Face is we're an outdoor technical brand. We made some of the best product, for the most extreme conditions. I was talking to Jimmy Chin, right before, talking about the next project that he has with some of our athletes, which is just going to be mind blowing. But at the same time, we just launched a partnership with Gucci. Celebrating, our very first catalog in the 70s. So the ability to understand who you're talking to, which audience you're connecting with, is really going to be critical for us, to be relevant and authentic moving forward.
And so is Gucci, that to me seems like a 1 + 1 = 3. Do both parties come to the table in that scenario and feel that the crossover brings them equity into some spots that they may have less, and just becomes a beautiful, integration?
That was the idea. When we talked, when we connected with the team, the thinking was celebrating, our heritage in the 70s in the outdoors. And, Alessandro, the creative director, is fond of, that era. Of the 70s. So literally a lot of the creative that you see, even the music soundtrack, comes from, the band that was rehearsing next to our very first store in the 70s.
Is that right?
Yeah, like all the products that you see are actually really drafted from our very first catalog. So it's celebrating the outdoor, but also bringing a new point of view, a fresh point of view, to access to the outdoor. So that's one element. But obviously for us, right now we're about to launch a brand new innovation around trail running and light hiking, and understanding how you serve ultra trail runners who run 100-mile races.
Has Reddit hit your radar? I mean, there's so much community there. Has that been? I know that's more progressive. Again, this is always where my brain goes, right? Like, what an opportunity! You're talking like Reddit has incredible opportunities of community, and has a underpriced ad product in the scheme of things, because people don't think it. It's obviously a tricky community, and you have to be quite authentic. Has that been brought up?
Yes, we have. We're actually looking at this right now. You guys will see. We're going to make have some partnership with Old Trail, and we're also going to be working with Strava to go after that ultra trail running community. We're a brand that speaks to micro communities who are really into the craft of what they do, the gear that they use for the endeavors that they pursue, and the idea of being really connected to these communities is really important for us. And frankly, that's what we do. Even the specialty channel, it's been hurt quite a bit, with COVID, but it still plays a massive role for us, because if you're a gearhead, you will go to these channels, because the staff knows what the product
has. I want to sneak this in with 1 minute to go, so I apologize. Has the e-commerce capabilities of the internal team and understanding exploded because of COVID? Like, you must be so advanced by comparison.
Yeah, we've grown, we matured a lot in the last year. That way. But that's just the way to go anyway.
I love it. Listen, I really appreciate your time. I wish you a lot of success.
Thank you. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Next, we welcome Angela Zepeda, CMO for Hyundai Motor America. Angela joined Hyundai with more than 25 years of experience on the agency side. She's responsible for all of Hyundai's marketing, including the strategic direction, brand, advertising, experiential marketing, digital and social media, brand partnerships, and lead generation. Welcome, Angela.
Good morning.
Hey, Angela.
Hey, Gary, how you doing?
Good. First of all, your purple turtleneck is fierce. You came in hot.
Oh,
I like it.
Well, it's still early in the morning here-ish, so anyway, might as well come in bright. It's a bright, sunny day here in Southern California.
Let's go right into it because I think the car industry fascinates me. When you think about media planning in 2021, what is in your mind, a winner or maybe even a loser of allocation of dollars, something that you are seeing more opportunity in or less opportunity? Like when you scan that landscape, where's the opportunities?
Oh, there's so many opportunities, which I think is great. We're still a challenger brand, or that's still how we see ourselves. I mean, some people have a hard time even knowing how to say Hyundai. We just make it easy, Hyundai like Sunday. But we need to be everywhere our audience is. So, winners and losers, some people pick on traditional media a little bit, and yet it still provides some of the biggest platforms and the biggest places where our audience is. But we have a lot of investment in trying new platforms because we're trying to really get in front of younger customers into our brand. We're a very different company today. We now have a full lineup of SUVs. We have incredible tech, safety on the cars. That's not the Hyundai that came here 35 years ago. That generation knows a different Hyundai. That was a value-driven car. This is now a much better vehicle that really
is that, I'm sorry to interrupt. Is that hard to shed that value play for a lot of people, like for the people that are watching right now? Like when you come in that way, even though it's 35 years ago, let's call it what it is. They did a great job at that. That caught a lot of people's attention and did extremely well. Explain to everybody how big or maybe it's not of a challenge that is.
It is a big challenge because when you ask people what we're known for, they'll say great value. But we want to get past that and do what we call the driveway test, which if someone comes home with a new Toyota, no one questions why you got a new Toyota in your driveway. We want to be that same brand as Hyundai, and we're that kind of brand now. We have that same level of quality and technology and safety as our Japanese competitors. We just need to let people know that Hyundai that maybe, we had a couple missteps in the past where we didn't always have quality at the forefront, but it's an incredible company with a ton of resilience. And so the vehicles we have today are very different. I think that's really great about bringing millennials, especially, into our brand today, because they don't know that brand. They just see what Hyundai they see now today, and it's a fresh perspective. So we do see younger and actually wealthier customers coming into our brand for the very first time. So we're excited about that. We still want to, keep our older audiences with us, but we want to bring in a whole new, audience moving forward.
How much, I'm sorry, because you really rocked me on that Hyundai like Sunday. How much or how little has the brand, like, I almost feel like if I had the luxury of having your job, like, especially with football, with religion, like I don't know, like I just watched a ton of people overreact to that. Like who knew or what, I think that most people say Hyundai, right?
Hyundai. They try to Koreanize it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, has that been, like, in a world now of fragmentation, it seems like there's a huge opportunity for you to really own that. I almost feel like one incredible year of bombardment in social, especially doing wild stuff on Sundays, 52 weeks in a year, we could be in 2022 and all of us know that Hyundai is, yeah.
Yeah, that was one reason why Jose Munoz, who's our CEO for North America and COO, he wanted me to come over from the agency to then lead a CMO at Hyundai because I have all this experience in brand building. Building our brand is our number one initiative. We had many years of being very focused on lower funnel demand generation, demand generating tactics, which was great because we needed to just sort of intercept where customers were shopping. But now people are starting to recognize our products and we're bringing them in as a fresh customer that needs to understand us more and understand more of what this product is, just more than the price. And so building this brand is really important. You know, we are very heavy in like Sunday Night Football. We've never used the word Hyundai like Sunday externally, but maybe if it has resonance with people, maybe there's a big idea that just got generated on this
live.
So there you go, live. This is how it works, people. But you know, we are going to do a lot more brand building. We're trying to bring more of a face to Hyundai. Sometimes we feel like it is a little facelift. We have an amazing chairman, E.S. Chung. He's a pretty young guy. He just took over about 2 years ago. He's amazing. He's got quite a vision for the company. And so we're figuring that out right now. This will be our big breakout year. We have a lot of launches, but the brand needs to come forward. And we do have some big ideas on how to do that. But I do like our Hyundai like Sunday. Maybe there is something there. So we'll take that away.
I think that in today's marketing world, with the amount of opportunity with the internet structure, to your point earlier about TV, I think it's not only the challenge and the debate of what the consumption versus the cost are against the GRPs, but it's also when you're in a TV mindset, people feel like it's an or game. We're going to position the brand this way, or this way, or this way, or this way. In my brain, there is clearly Hyundai like Sunday, like legs, but it doesn't need to be the entire brand positioning, but it could be a monster on surprise and delight on Sunday. Right. That's right. And to me, that's the shedding. It's kind of like loosen that up.
I don't have to have the same brand voice everywhere I am.
And people and normal people watching right now, Angela, they don't understand the concept of brand voice. Like it goes into a corporate ecosystem conversation that people like. Nobody's gonna be ticked off if they see Hyundai like Sunday on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, but then on TV they say Hyundai getting you to where you need to go to. They're not like, oh my God, this is like, nobody's appalled by that. Yet the Fortune 500 Madison Avenue ecosystem thinks they are. They don't give a shit.
Luggage when it comes to corporate brand strategy. It is true. And we do fight against that a little bit too. So you're inspiring me to break out from all of that. And it is a constant struggle. There's a lot of people who weigh into what we do. If you stay to the creativity and really talking like a human to other humans, then I think you would realize that you don't talk the same way to everybody that you're talking to. Of course, that's not how we are as people. So why should your brand be like that too? So this is good for me. I have to have these moments to speak to people on the outside to get me to thinking fresh for the future. Oh, see, you're wearing purple too.
You are, man, you're fast because I go fast. I was literally about to say I'm such an idiot. Look at this. We're like so matching now. All right. Let's talk about audio because I think people are in their cars. So there's like, I love audio advertising for automotive on podcast, which is eating up an incredible amount of consumption of audio in car.
Yep.
Because I always think like, oh, you're pissed at your car right now. It doesn't smell as good as it used to. Something just happened. Like you just looked out the window and we're envious. It feels incredibly exciting to me.
Audio is huge. Yeah, we dip into, well, actually we love radio. We use it a lot for drive time. We call it terrestrial radio, but we're moving into areas like Spotify, which we did a sponsorship or partnership with them this last year to launch our Elantra, where we did a podcast. There was video too. We partnered with Interscope Artist, and it was called Unlock My City. And basically they were driving around their city talking about the things that they love. So it was a podcast, but then we did do a couple that were video just to help show more of the sheet metal because that's what cars are all about. But it's still great content to draw audiences in. And we know audio is so big with, very loyal audiences that love to plug in and listen. And with the pandemic, this was it took a huge spike. So that Spotify was the first time we stepped in with them. We loved it. It was hugely successful. We'll do more of that. We love the idea of podcasts and just radio and audio in general.
Anything you're kind of taking a scrutiny with, just like maybe rethinking, you've been in the game for a while, it's not about razzing print or Facebook or Snapchat or direct mail. It just, I think I want to educate on these shows. Is there anything that you are saying to yourself,
I'll tell you a big one that was a big decision for us was we are not going to be in Super Bowl this year. And we were in for 13 years. So
you did Super Bowl for 13 years and never debated the Hyundai Sunday thing when the biggest thing in the world is on a Sunday?
I know. Well,
I'm pissed now. I'll see you later. I'm upset.
Sometimes it takes a genius conversation.
Go ahead. So yeah, that was a huge decision.
Not in it. It was a huge decision. It was because it's a lot of money. We still love it. We're still very tied to football, but for one day, which we had an incredible spot last year, our Smart Pack. We got a lot of play on that. We still love it, but we need to extend, I think, a big Super Bowl day for many more days. So it kind of spikes on that one day and then it kind of trails off. We need to kind of expand that a little bit. And so we're excited about what's going to come this year, but that was a major decision for us because we've been so tied to it. A lot of people were surprised. It felt a little good to loosen it up a little bit. We feel like so much pressure to have like an award-winning spot every year, but that still needs to come through creatively with the creative. It can't be any less than a big Super Bowl idea.
Well, listen, we've got to run, but I got more stuff. We'll purple it up another time.
We'll purple it up. It was great to see you.
Good to see you. Continued success.
Next up, John Ruhlin is the leading authority in maximizing customer loyalty through radical generosity. He is the founder and author of Giftology, a system of using generosity to build relationships with new clients and generate thousands of referrals through empathy and kindness. He works hand in hand with organizations from UBS to the Chicago Cubs. Welcome, John.
Hey, Gary, how are you?
Good, John. My best friend, Brandon Warnicki, is going to be thrilled when he rewatches this because he is a big Cubs fan. So thanks for helping out there. John, actually, I think, unlike most of the brands that have been on here, give us the 1-minute spiel on exactly what you do, because I think that will help people. And then what I'd like to think about is the framework of gifting and what the media platforms are that give it some power to be able to do some stuff.
Yeah. So I grew up in Ohio. I'm a farm boy, goat milk and farm kid from Ohio. And I thought I was going to go be a doctor to get out of Dodge. I grew up in a town of 400 people, but I had a mentor early on when I was 20 who was radically generous and built these amazing relationships and was kind of a referral machine. And I realized that in any business, it's all about relationships. Whether you're one person or a 10,000 person company, everything rises and falls on employee and client relationships. And so I realized nobody was teaching people how to be generous and to do it strategically. Most people would, here's an Amazon gift card, here's a bottle of wine, here's a whatever. And so I dropped out of med school and started an agency. And about 5 years ago, wrote a book called Giftology. We're the only one in the space. Everybody else sends stuff, but we're teaching people how to use gratitude and generosity and empathy really as a year-round thoughtful thing to do, not just to check the box at the Christmas time, like a lot of people.
Go figure.
Yeah.
The channels, like what should brands or startups or, entrepreneurs here be thinking about? What should they know about which media outlets give them a better chance to execute the thesis?
Yeah, well, I think that we're getting a lot of inbound of people reaching out, wanting to engage. You're talking about influencer marketing and different things, and I think a lot of people, they do things very generic and very vanilla. Whether they're launching a book and sending out, 500 copies in vanilla envelopes, or whether they're, trying to get on podcasts or whatever else. And so I think that the focus for us has been going into, and I heard somebody else mention this earlier on, it's human to human, it's one-to-one. And I think that a lot of people have done too much stuff that's to the masses. And I think that, 2020 with the pandemic, I think people have realized that, hey, these are human beings that you're dealing with. And I think that a lot of people haven't realized until now, until everybody's at home and kids are running in and dogs and whatever else, that like, oh my gosh, they're a human being outside of whatever channel they're in. And so I'm seeing a lot more people reaching out and wanting to, like the traditional ways of building relationships, whether that's with mass media or whether that's at conferences or dinners, like the traditional ways have been blown up. And so people are struggling. How do I build connections from afar? I think a lot of people took for granted, like I'm going to be able to go to CES or the Super Bowl or whatever else. All of those building a relationship or engaging people is completely gone. And so we're seeing a lot more people that are doubling down on how can I take my top 2% or my top 1%. And similar to what you did with, I think you're talking about Taylor Swift. She can't show up at every wedding, but she can show up at one wedding. And you did it with the jersey. A guy spends $300 on wine or champagne or whatever, and you show up with a jersey. that becomes a ripple effect people are, it's a story worth talking about, whether it's on Snapchat or Instagram, and you're seeing brands that are getting wise to leverage and say, hey, may not be able to do it for everybody, but let's pick 10 people and go all in on those people.
I mean, and you know this, I mean, after Crush It, which looks smarter and smarter these days, the next book I wanted to write was The Thank You Economy. I wrote that in 2010. I mean, I believe in this. It's in my religion. I don't even understand how I can't believe that people are, 2021, like we should do, how this is progressive thinking in 2021 makes me want to rip my eyeballs out and jump out this window.
Me too. I mean, I've been talking about it for 20 years in a different vein than you have on social media. It's more like, if a relationship matters, how you show up for them in the valley, especially in a pandemic, is the time to double down on generosity. It's the time to show up and be extra bold with people.
John, do you agree that, I apologize, do you agree a lot of people fuck this up because they want the tactic for their business, and so because their intent is grounded in that, it kind of I think the reason this is such a challenging concept is that you have to have this incredible kind of like separation of the short term and the long term. I think what works for me, John, is I do all this kind of stuff all day long because I think in 67-year terms. And when people try to replicate it and I watch them, or when clients fuck up the stuff that I want them to do, it's because they care about the 67 minutes or days, not the 67 years. Thoughts?
Yeah, I tell people all the time, the long game is decades, not days. And if you do something nice for somebody and then ask for the referral or ask for the opening door or do whatever, that's not a gift. That's a manipulation. That's a bait and switch. Correct. And so people can tell. I tell people all the time, like, if you have the wrong energy when you're doing something for somebody, then even reading between the lines, you can tell when somebody does something or they do almost go too far. And then when like you can tell that you're being bribed. Like there's a difference between being thoughtful and bribed.
Gary, I'm going to do you a huge favor. I'm going to pick you up at the airport and take you to your hotel, but that's grounded in, hey, I need to pitch you my business, bro. So like, they're like, I'm going to help you buy the jets if you give me $1 million to start this company. And then the biggest one, John, I don't know if this has ever how this crosses over in your world. This gets into a very deep feeling I have around people who say, I always get walked all over. And I talk to a lot of these people and I say, are you getting walked all over? Or were you giving as a manipulation tack? Because giving is giving on the other person's terms, not on yours. And I see a lot of people crying, Gary, I don't like being nice. I'm always walked all over. And I'm a weird guy. I go deep with them, and I do this 20, 50 times a year. And 99% of the time, they weren't being sweet. They were trying to manipulate a situation by giving somebody something they didn't want because they wanted something in return. Thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's like the book Give and Take. There's giving, taking, matching. Most people are matchers that want to be a giver, but they're playing in the matching world of like tit for tat. I do this for you, then now you have to do this for me. And I think you've talked about it, like your jab, 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 right hook was you give, then you earn the right to maybe ask, but it does not give you the, like if you keep score and get pissed off, and I tell people all the time, like I'll do things that, like we sent somebody a sauna as a gift. I didn't ask for anything and it didn't pay off for literally years later. But it wasn't because I asked for anything. He was inspired. And I think there's a difference between, and I think that's where most people with gifting, they're not really doing gifts. What they're doing is it's a carrot and stick. It's a incentive. It's a reward.
Correct.
And whether it's for your spouse or whether it's for your biggest client or whether it's for an influencer, when you do things with the right intention and no strings attached, and then show up again, and then show up again, and then show up again, you start building the social bank accounts like with your spouse. If you show up with a gift and then ask for something 5 minutes later, it wasn't a gift. You were trying to get something.
It was a ticket. It was a cost of entry. John, it's exactly right. John, I swear to God, you're talking. You know what fires me up? I do a ton of this shit. I'm more excited when it doesn't pay out.
It makes for a better story. It makes for a way.
But you know this because, I don't even I just love it because it speaks to the merit of the truth of the intent.
Well, if it worked every single time, then it wouldn't really be like we're emotional beings, and what people don't understand. And that's why agencies or big companies sometimes have a hard time with like playing the long game of you're going to love on all these relationships and then not ask for anything. And they're like, well, what's the date on that? And I'm like, well, it could pay off this way or it could pay off 10 years from now. You say you're playing the long game, but are you really willing to make deposits year after year, quarter after quarter, in your employees, clients, suppliers? And the answer is most of them, they want to say that they're playing the game in decades, but really they're playing it in quarters because they're a publicly traded company. And they're like, if I go take my marketing budget and I slice off $5 million and go invest in all these people and it doesn't work, then my head rolls and I'm out of a job. And so most people are positioning themselves to play the safe thing, and leveraging generosity with all these relationships is a weird concept, and it's a freaky one. But if everybody was really good at thoughtful gift giving, it wouldn't work. It would just be noise.
It's the least weird, the least, this is the most human. Be a fucking good person. Funny shit happens. Go figure.
I know.
All right, brother. Thanks for being on. Continued success.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Up next, we have Marissa Freeman, the Chief Brand Officer of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Marissa helped lead the historical split of HP into two separate entities. Today, Marissa leads HPE's experience marketing team, driving brand strategy, global events, sponsorships, advertising, media, and digital marketing. Welcome, Marissa.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Hi, Gary.
Hey, Marissa, how are you?
Good. Being a good person, man. That's the
Go
thing.
figure, right? Go figure.
Go figure. It's what my mother always said.
Brilliant. Let's talk about media plan. Actually, why don't you quantify, because HP comes in a lot of forms. So I want everybody to have good context. Talk to me about HPE so people understand it, and then I'll go into the combo.
Thank you. So HP, Hewlett-Packard, is what everyone thought it was forever. And then 5 years ago, we split into two companies. One was the printers and PCs, and that went one way, and that's the blue logo. And then the other one became the data, cloud, 5G, AI, edge computing company. And that's where I went. I find it to be incredibly exciting. It's not really about edge cloud. It's about data, companies using data to make people's lives better, doing cool things and making experiences better for the rest of us. So
you're targeting more B2B?
We target P2P. So there's about 17 people.
Define that P2P.
People to people, human to human. There's like 17 people in the buying decision process, but they're all human beings, and they have passions and likes and wants and dreams just like the rest of us. And so I think about media strategy in telling human stories and connecting with someone with the things that they care about.
But for the audience's value, who are the decision makers normally in an organization that buy your services? What are their titles, and what are the services?
Sure. So we actually have to approach the C-suite because these are huge tickets, right? Millions of dollars in investments. Some, not all of them, but most, we work with every major global company on the planet, and they spend a lot of money on IT.
Yep.
And so it's the CEO, primarily the CIO, and the CTO, and the chief digital officer, and increasingly the chief marketing officer, because data is the new oil, right? It's the currency that we all deal in. And so the C-suite, really important to us. And then we have a layer underneath that of IT decision makers. These are the guys and gals who are data scientists, and they're doing the coding, and they're specifying, what cloud companies you work with and what workloads go where. And so they're the ones who actually have a very big influence on the decision. So we got the whole spectrum there.
When companies, and this is going to help a lot of small and large B2B companies, and I'm sorry, P2P companies, but when you're selling to a company that's spending over $1 million and sometimes 10 million, like big ticket items, to your point, how do you, and by nature, those companies tend to skew more as sales-driven companies than brand-driven and marketing-driven companies, because there's a lot of need for salespeople. There's a lot of conflict in that game because brand is hard to fully put your hands on an ROI. Sally closing an $8 million deal can speak to that, but how much did the brand have? It's a really fun puzzle.
Yeah. And relationships are critical, right?
Period. Right? Period. In today's world, influencing to create consideration, build awareness of this C-suite, is it the LinkedIn's in a world where conferences used to be such a big play for companies like this, and they're not going on with COVID? print advertising in the B2B magazines that have the attention of the C-suite. Give us the lay of the land of how you're thinking from a marketing now on a P2P standpoint.
Well, about 70% of all of the research and learning about any big ticket item like this is done online. It's done with friends, and it's done through word of mouth, and it's done through search. So we spend a ton of time softening the market and building confidence and trust before our sales folks even get a phone call or make the phone call. Yes, events went dark this year. We had last year 9 weeks to turn our biggest event, 12,000 people showing up in Las Vegas with CIOs and their staff, into a virtual event. 9 weeks. And it was insane, but we did it, and it was really good. And we will never go back to 100% in person without a digital component attached to it. We love our in-person event. It's amazing for us. But the power of data and digital, when applied to that relationship and then carried through the year, is just priceless.
Any platforms that really have your attention going into 2021?
In terms of the events or media platforms?
Media platforms.
Media platforms.
That we're going to get.
Yes. I wanted to have this conversation about passion points. So, for example, we work with Mercedes Formula One.
Okay.
We work with Disney Studios, Disney Parks, Tottenham Football Club, the Warriors in Chase Stadium. So when we tell the technology stories underneath all of that, like how does Lewis Hamilton shave milliseconds off of a turn? That's a data story, right? Yes. So for me, platforms, media plans kind of have to write themselves based on the creative story and the soul of the story.
So this is interesting. You're saying that when you think about media plans and creative intertwined, which I love, you're actually looking at the current landscape of your clients and using the interest graph of your clients back to passion points. So you're saying, wow, we have the Warriors, one of the more progressive organizations. So we're gonna use the reality that they use us, because a CIO who's in LinkedIn or print or an event who happens to be a basketball fan is going to stop in her tracks more around that and then see the underlying story than us talking about milliseconds.
Yes.
Using your own customer's IP, that's really great.
It's wonderful, and it pays back in dividends, because the people reading LinkedIn, scrolling through LinkedIn, they also have Netflix over here, or the basketball game on in the background. And that's who we are competing with, Gary. Like, everyone's home. So
Melissa, I'm sorry, real quick, there's something brewing. Everybody on Facebook, it seems like some scammer is trying to say you won a $20,000 picture or something like that. For the record, because there's cryptocurrency. You will never hear from me or my team. There's millions of fake accounts of me. I'm never giving away free money or free cryptocurrency. Like, you should know that by now. I know it might be enticing for a second, but please don't ever fall for that. Keep going, Marissa. I had to do a public service announcement reading the comments.
No, it's a good thing. Security is a major risk and a very big passion point, by the way.
Fair enough.
It's one that it's a scroll stopper, especially for CIOs like you or CEOs like you.
For sure. I'm sorry, please keep going.
Yeah, so so the Formula One, for example, or basketball, we'll build our whole plan around the intersection of people who make technology decisions and love basketball. And we can buy media like that, and we can buy search like that, and that gives us 7 times the engagement rates, Gary. 7 times, and that's on an average day. 7 times.
Let me do something different for the last 2 minutes to mix up the show. You, Marissa, the human. You, what ads or what platforms are converting you? Have you bought something for your home or clothes or food on an Instagram feed ad? Have you?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, talk to me about you. What's catching your attention?
Well, I love newsletters. I'm big on Morning Brew and things like that. I met the guy from Morning Brew. His name was Joe, a couple of years ago, and I started following it. And I bought it for my company. We were one of the first advertisers in Morning Brew. I love Axios. We buy Axios. I'm a podcast fanatic. I personally just absolutely I love yours. I love many podcasts. I walk my dog and I listen to a podcast. We have supercomputing. We bought Cray, the biggest, best, most amazing supercomputing company in the world, and governments buy that stuff. So we went on niche podcasts, Hacks on Tap, Mike Murphy, David Axelrod.
I like that. I like it.
It's your.
Are you getting live reads or is it?
I try to do the Howard Stern thing where I know Mike, so I'll say, Mike, here's the script because I know you want to have
do your thing.
Read it. Say whatever you want, and he knows about this stuff. He's so smart, and then occasionally he'll go off script, which is what you really want, right?
Of course.
Yes.
So, by the way, that's a perfect way to end this. Occasionally going off script is exactly what you want. We need more of that in marketing. Take care of yourself. We'll talk soon.
Good to see you.
Next up, we have Frank Cooper III, the CMO of BlackRock.
The third.
Frank leads BlackRock's marketing across every region of the world, combining the science of data and tech with the art of creativity, culture, and purpose. Frank began his career as an entertainment lawyer, later serving as a top exec at two of the world's most iconic music labels, Motown and Def Jam. He later went on to C-suite roles at BuzzFeed and PepsiCo. Welcome, Frank.
Oh, Frank, you're on mute, brother.
Oh, still learning, man. Still learning. Great to be here. Thank you.
Great to see you. For everybody who PepsiCo was a very early client and Frank was a superstar, and this is a huge joy for me. And we've built a friendship through the years. Frank, thank you for being here.
Great to be here, Gary. Great to see you.
Frank, as you go into 2021, you've done I watched from afar. You've done what I thought you would. There's a contemporary energy brewing at BlackRock that I really felt between your music and entertainment and the rock star status at Pepsi, and then you go to BuzzFeed. Like, you've had the kind of career that if I wasn't an entrepreneur, I feel like I would have your type of it makes sense to me, right? It's like in between corporate and entrepreneurship. As with that energy in mind, how are you thinking about your media plan in 2021? Where are you looking to get creative? What are some of the things that are emerging for such an iconic brand?
Yeah, Gary. Thanks. Look, and I learned a lot through you over the years, and honestly, more one-on-one and just having conversations. So I appreciate that. But look, I mean, the way I think about it, just taking one huge step back, is I first think about the context of the times in which we live, and a great media plan in times of stability will fail miserably in times of rapid.
If it's rigid.
If it's rigid.
And by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Everybody, that was a huge insight because, again, what Frank just did subconsciously matters. The big companies are incredibly rigid compared to the mid, small, and entrepreneurs. They lock in. Frank comes from a PepsiCo world where they locked in their TV and that was 80% of the monies. And like when something happens, you can't get out of your Fox money or your right, Frank?
That's exactly right. And look, if you think about the times we're in right now, the massive shifts, the shifts are happening across social, they're happening across cultural landscapes, they're happening in the technological sphere, they're happening in the political sphere. It's changing everything fundamentally. And what I think we're facing is uncertainty. And large companies do not like uncertainty. Large companies are used to managing risk and they're used to incremental change. But I just embrace the times that we live in. The times that we live in is a time of fundamental change and accelerating change. And the antidote to that is creativity. The antidote to that is you have to take some leaps. You have to take some risks in moving forward. So I come in, when I think first about a media plan, I come in with that particular mindset, that we are going to take leaps. We're going to leave some flexibility within the media plan so that we can adapt as things will inevitably change. So for me, that's kind of the first step I take. The second thing, Gary,
and Frank, were you able to create more flexibility upfront budget this year than you did last year? Like, did you go into this year with less locked in?
100%. 100%.
Good for you.
And look,
you know this. I'm sorry to interrupt again. I'm just excited. People talk about things, but don't get around to it because of the corporate culture and just easier to do the same old thing. So to hear that you, by math, have less locked in to give you the mobility. Now, I actually think that's very practical and it makes sense, but it almost, how people talk about it'll never go back to the same world post-COVID. I feel the flexibility you feel this year, even though the world's back to normal and should be stabilized, the nectar of that flexibility is going to be intoxicating and will become more of the reality.
100%. And look, and I don't think there is a thing of going back to normal. I actually think what we experienced in this past year just kind of accelerated and amplified what was already happening right beneath the surface. And beneath the surface is that it is a time of rapid change. But look, I was able to do it, but not all in one fell swoop. I was able to set aside this money by talking first to those in the C-suite, other senior executives about what's real and what's not, avoiding the myth of impressions. Not getting mesmerized by kind of the sizzle of a great video, and talking to them about what really matters. So that made a big difference. But for us, we're in this world where PepsiCo, I say my budget was at least 7 times the amount that I have here.
Do you think that forces you to be scrappier? Do you think it's kind of when I think about the world, it's hard to be hungry when you're fed. Do you think that restriction has caused, and that friction, because you're accustomed to a different budget world, do you think that created a more innovative gear inside of you and your team?
There's no doubt it made me and the team more innovative. It reminded me of the early days of hip hop, actually. When you just have to have the hustler spirit. You figure out, how do I make things work given what I have? And one of the most, I think, foundational shifts we made was that we realized that the messenger is the message. And so we tapped in, we tried to, and we're continuing to try to tap into influencers, but not necessarily the big cultural influencers, those people who have power to shift the thinking and behavior of the people that we care about the most. And
your target, which will be a totally different influencer than if you're Peloton.
100%. And what I love about it is that now, we used to do it purely by relationships and kind of a cultural feel, of who's in the marketplace. And we still apply some of that, but now it's heavily data driven. And we can actually see and visualize who is having the greatest impact on the topics that we care about the most. And so when I think about media, I think first and foremost about the times we're in, but then I shift to, so what can we deliver to the people that we want to share with others? Because that's where the message really resonates, particularly in this time where people don't really trust large institutions. They don't trust corporate voices. They trust people who are in their immediate network. And so we try to feed that immediate network with information, graphics, background material, quotes, things that they can share. And for me, there's a lot of power in that.
I agree. Frank, what about you as a consumer? I enjoyed that last question. What's grabbing your attention from a marketing standpoint? Like, give me an anecdotal story. Like, I needed to buy a stereo set. This OTT ad happened, or I just bought this new running shoes on Instagram, and that surprised me. I'd never done that before. You got anything that's happened over the last couple of months?
Well, look, for me personally, like if I'm at home and the thing that has shocked me is the extent to which I'm buying off of Instagram. I'm buying things I probably don't even need. I'm flipping down and I see work at home pants, and then I click it on and it's like, do I really need it? But it just feels good. And so I'm purchasing a lot off of Instagram. But the platform I'm absolutely obsessed with, I'm totally obsessed with LinkedIn. And I'm obsessed with it more from a professional perspective, but just overall, it is relationship driven. It is focused. It's not based on the math of large numbers necessarily. It's based on the groups that you can get together around one person. And I love it. I love the fact that LinkedIn Live is up and running. I'm totally obsessed with that as a platform, not only for thought leadership.
Have you jumped into Clubhouse yet?
Yeah, I have. I'm still trying to figure Clubhouse out though.
Are you listening? Are you mainly listening at this point, or have you contributed?
I'm totally listening. Yeah.
Frank, you have so much to say. I'm pushing you as a friend. Go contribute to one room. You need to taste all sides of it to really figure it out, right? Figuring it out is like figuring out oysters by looking at it or talking about it. The real way to figure out oysters is by slurping it. You need to jump in and taste it.
All right, I'm going to do it.
I'll tell you why, because I think for your sector, hosting some of those rooms for BlackRock will end up becoming something real in the next 18 months.
I'm going to circle back to you, Gary. I'm jumping in this weekend, and I'll tell you how it goes. Honestly, I'm going to jump in.
I'm going to hold you to that. Frank, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Good seeing you. All right.
Andrea, I want to take the floor for 2 minutes if you don't mind.
Please.
But hang with me. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. I wanted to take 2 minutes and just say thank you. The purpose of this entire programming, and make sure you sign up, go to VaynerMedia.com. There's, there is on VaynerMedia, on VaynerX.com, right, Andrea? On VaynerX.com.
Yeah, we also are now at marketingforthenow.VaynerX.com.
Okay, that's a mouthful. On VaynerX.com, though, there's a click for Marketing from Now that will send them there, right? VaynerX.com, yeah. So go to VaynerX.com and make sure you're signed up for the announcements of the future shows. But I just want to let everybody know the intent of this. 2 hours in the middle of the day for me is not the easiest thing in the world, especially at the volume that Andrea and I are doing this show. I know that my community is extremely vast and goes in many different places. I have a very big part of my life in corporate and Fortune 500 land, but I'm trying to move the conversations and navigate where there's some insights. I hope the passive nature of audio, you can even have this in the background in a tab while you're working on something else. I'm obsessed with value driving. These are the kind of conferences that used to cost a lot of money for tickets based on the pedigree of the speakers that we're bringing to the table. And I hope that, Andrew's got an extensive team. We're putting a lot of economics behind trying to build and bring some of the best marketing information in the world. Obviously, I'm spending a lot of time personally putting out more SMB and entrepreneurial conversation. There's just one other tool in our tool belt, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope it brings you value, and I hope it inspires some kids to get into this industry, or more importantly, somebody gleams one little idea that a big company's doing and figures out how to translate it into theirs. And then obviously all the texts and emails I'm getting right now from the corporate world that says, don't listen to the entrepreneurs. This is what we need. We don't have much of this. Thank you for the kind words. And I hope everybody has a great, healthy, happy, wonderful, thoughtful 2021. Andrea?
Thanks for that, Gary. And yeah, we'd love to hear from all of you. Send us a note at marketingforthenow@VaynerX.com. We've got another show coming up February 25th from 12 to 2 p.m. Eastern, and it's going to focus on influencer marketing. So please join us. #MarketingForTheNow. Keep the conversation going, and check us out. Check out all our past episodes on VaynerX.com. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Hit me up on Twitter with feedback.